Bulls Nation, we have just come off one of the most difficult weeks of the season that we are going to experience, traveling to the West Coast, versing two of the best teams in LA, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Sacramento Kings. Last week for the Chicago Bulls is definitely one that we can look at with a lot of happiness and also a lot of discouragement, considering what the turns of events have happened. But this week for the Chicago Bulls is up and down depending on your interpretation. So without further ado, let's talk about my interpretation of this week for the Chicago Bulls. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a Chicago Bulls weekly video to discuss in relation to the previous week that the Chicago Bulls has just faced and looking forward to this upcoming week. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on. Before we go any further into this video, I want to give a huge thank you to those people. While I'm still making videos, to be fair, but obviously not feeling at my best, and I'm still not, but I'm getting much better. And thank you guys for everything, all the messages that you've sent. I am feeling better, and hopefully within a day or two, I'll be back to making some more videos that I want to make. I've been for the longest time wanting to make a video solely on how happy I've been with Patrick Williams and how Billy Donovan has changed this team. So look out for those videos in the future. Those are the two videos specifically I've wanted to make for quite some time, but obviously being ill has gotten in the way of that. So if you haven't watched last week's Chicago Bulls Weekly, we ended up stopping at the Dallas Mavericks victory. Well, since then, we have had quite a few games, to be fair. Let's go through each game individually and the results. The first game was against the Portland Trail Blazers, where we went 111-108, Chicago Bulls victory. Then we went to the Sacramento Kings, and in a tight affair, we fell to the Sacramento Kings 128-124. Moving on to the LA side, we fall to the LA Lakers 117-115, and then the most recent result, we lost to the Clippers 130-127. So all around, the Chicago Bulls at this point in time are 1-3 in their record this week. We had 4 games to play and we were 1-3. So look, at the end of the day, the stressful things about the Chicago Bulls, the most impactful things about the Chicago Bulls is not necessarily the results of these games, because if you're just looking at the results, it's been a pretty poor week, if I do say so myself. But the way that we competed in these games is a very big indication of the growth of this team. And I know the Bulls coach and the Bulls players will see it as just a loss. But as a fan of the Chicago Bulls, I can't help but believe that this team is heading in the right direction despite having multiple losses this week. So the Bulls record overall is 4-7 right now, which I think from based on last season, again, you guys can check this for me if I am wrong. Last season at this point in time, we did not go 4-7. So that is a sign of growth despite this being a 10-game less season. And of course, there are still a lot of ups and downs in these victories and these losses that we faced. Now, just to keep an update on the injuries once again as well, the injuries that were sustained and the protocols that were sustained throughout the previous week is still being effective in this week. But we still have some new injuries to discuss. So obviously, Larry Markkinen did not play this week. Chandler Hutchison did not play this week. Satoransky did not play this week. Those are the players that are in protocol. Obviously, players like Felicio and them have not played either. But the newest injury that we do need to discuss, obviously Zach LaVine had a slight shoulder issue, I believe, during that Sacramento game that he's been managing. And of course, Zach LaVine playing through injury is very, very worrying. But at the end of the day, Zach LaVine and other players fall. We don't have enough players. So big credit to Zach LaVine to playing through that injury. Otto Porter received back spasms against the LA Lakers, I believe, which means he didn't play for majority of the first and second half of the LA Lakers game and has missed the Clippers game. Now, there is big news as well to discuss in relation to our next game, but of course, with that being said, hopefully Otto Porter will be back for the next game, considering we do have some time off from what I'm seeing on this screen right now, and hopefully this isn't true. But again, looking at this screen right now, that Boston game does not seem to be happening. So again, something to look over. We do have a little bit more time off, a little bit more time to train, get ready, get rested, and hopefully come back stronger. Let's go into the individual performance for this week. A very, very strong week in terms of performance for the Chicago Bulls. But again, there are 3 awards that I give out every single week. The award that must improve player of the week, the player that needs to step up going into the next week, the 6th man of the week, which means the best bench player of the week for the Chicago Bulls, and the player of the week, which is the overall player that has had the best week for the Chicago Bulls. So first thing, kicking off, we must focus on the must improve player. And this player, I feel very unfortunate that he's the one that I'm going to target. But after recent games, there is a lot of things that are wrong with the way that this player plays. Now, overall, he's had a decent week. It's been a mixed bag. I'm targeting Daniel Gafford, obviously, for the must improve player. In the game against Portland, I believe, and in the game against Sacramento, Daniel Gafford was solid. Daniel Gafford was good. Daniel Gafford was doing the right things. But the 2 games against the Clippers was a big drastic turn of events for Daniel Gafford, and that's why I'm targeting as the must improve player over recent games compared to the games at the start of the week. Because Daniel Gafford, in terms of consistency, I don't think that's the issue for Daniel Gafford. I think the issue is that he cannot keep himself on the floor. He is a solid backup center. He provides the energy. He provides the defensive presence. He is in my opinion, a better rim protector than Wendell Carter, even though stats might not prove that. But for Daniel Gafford, it's the fouls. It's the fouls that take him out of the game. The reason why he's so inconsistent in his minutes is because one game he could be playing 16 minutes or up to 20 minutes in a game, and he doesn't commit too many fouls. Then the next few games, he's only playing 10 minutes or maybe 16 minutes. And that, in my opinion, is where either he's being played based on certain type of games, or he's causing himself to get off the court due to foul trouble or due to being doing something that the coach doesn't want him to do. So something like that for Daniel Gafford, I would like to see him get improved. Now, with Larry Markkinen coming back soon, maybe we won't see Daniel Gafford to the extent that we're seeing him now. But of course, as someone that I really have good faith in Daniel Gafford that he will be very solid for this team, even as a starter. If he ever did start, if Wendell Carter did sustain an injury, God forbid he doesn't, because we don't need more injuries, Daniel Gafford is someone that I have faith in moving into that starting lineup if necessary. So again, this week, I'm not too fussed about Daniel Gafford being must improve player of the week. I do see him as a quality backup center. I do think in certain games he will do very, very well for us this season. And the 6th man of the week award, I'm going to give to Thaddeus Young. Now, many people might have said Otto Porter based on that Portland game, but Otto Porter, in every single game that he's played this week, he has started. So it's either going to be between Garrett Temple and Thaddeus Young. Those are my 2 players, 6th men of the week. But Garrett Temple, in his best game for the Chicago Bulls, was his last game against the Clippers, and he started. And yes, there were beautiful performances in terms of the Lakers game, even the Sacramento game. He's had very good performances, so a huge shout out to Garrett Temple. But Thaddeus Young was someone that was on the bench consistently this week, and he sustained his performances, getting constant double-digit games, getting constant good assists for a big man, and he ended up closing out games towards the later part of the week in relation to Wendell Carter. Wendell Carter was not the person that closed out these games. It was Thaddeus Young. He chose the veteran leadership. He chose the player that is guaranteed to close out a game compared to someone that we want to have that trait inside of him. And maybe a lot of people have said this, and I tend to agree. I would rather Wendell Carter close out a game so he can help learn those experiences. But at the end of the day, this is a result-based industry in the NBA. The results count. So I think Billy Donovan is trying to find a balance, which is why he still plays Wendell Carter at some instances in the fourth quarter. But if you're talking about the final 2 minutes, it's usually Thaddeus Young in this week that has closed out games. So a huge shout out to Thaddeus Young. And I think he's had a tremendous week for this team. And I would like to see that continue. He looks like a completely different, reinformed, reinvented player under Billy Donovan. And this is what Billy Donovan does. And this is why I want to make a video about it. He has made a lot of people so happy as of late. And of course, the player of the week is the one and the only, the man, Zach LaVine. Now, the only negative I could say about Zach LaVine is that he must improve his game management in the fourth quarter. Big time players make big time plays. That is something that Stacey King says a lot about this team, and something that a lot of people say about players when they're in the clutch. Big time players make big time plays. But notice how that saying doesn't necessarily say big time players make the big time shots. That's not the saying. Because the fact of the matter is, if you make the right play, if you're Zach LaVine, the most important thing is to make the right play. And I feel like some of those shots that he took, look, the last 3 games that we've lost, it's Zach LaVine taking the last shot and not necessarily making a pass. Now, in some of those instances, like again, the Clippers game, I'm not fussed because at the end of the day, he dropped 45 points. He was very efficient from the 3-point line. And it's obviously the percentages on that night. Zach LaVine was taking the 3 was probably the right thing, despite people being open. But the Kings game and the Lakers game specifically, there was passes open for him. The Lakers game, it was a pick and roll with Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young was open. And we had time on the clock to give him the ball and allow him to maybe make the right pass into the corner or take a layup and maybe get an offensive rebound if he misses that layup. But he took a fadeaway. And yes, if those shots go in, no one complains because, again, big-time players make big-time plays. But unfortunately for Zach LaVine this week, that has not been the case. But despite those instances, Zach LaVine has been absolutely phenomenal this week. And he's proving once again, every single year, he steps up from the year before. And the averages, I think, is a lot better from last year to this year. This year's having a much better season. But it's not about that for me with Zach LaVine. It's not about the stats. It's not about if he's averaging 23 points last season to 26 points this season. For me, it's about the way that he's able to bring teammates involved. And yes, despite that fourth quarter instances where he does end up taking the last shot, even if it is a bad shot, throughout the entirety of the game, Zach LaVine's playmaking has been dramatically improved. Zach LaVine's on-ball defense has been dramatically improved from last season. And those are the things that I take more notice of than the last shot of the game. Because in most scenarios in this game, if we had a little bit more contribution from the likes of Wendell Carter, maybe the likes of Patrick Williams, we gave Patrick Williams a little bit more shots, not necessarily use him as bait, or maybe use him as the open shot, or having him to create his own shot. If we made more plays around these players and gave Zach LaVine a little bit more pressure to do his own thing and make it a little bit easier for him, then this team would have won most of these games and probably maybe not even been close in some of these games. Like, take the pressure off of Zach LaVine for a little bit. But regards of that, I simply can't complain of the week that he's having. He had a tremendous week, and he deserves the player of the week. Now, in terms of talking about the news with the Boston Celtics, there is news to discuss. Look, I'm on the internet, or basically Google Chrome, searching the Chicago Bulls. And from what I am aware, the Boston Celtics game is not showing up as the next game for the Chicago Bulls. Now, this has obviously changed from yesterday when I made a Chicago Bulls update video and for the game reaction, and the next game was the Boston Celtics. It doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And for anybody that doesn't know why, the Boston Celtics have been hit with a major, basically team-filled COVID season in the last few games. I believe it was started from the 76ers and it moved its way to the Boston Celtics. I believe that's what's happened. And Boston Celtics stars and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown ended up getting this virus and in protocol. A lot of their team is in protocol, so they've had to cancel that game against the Miami Heat. And it looks like this game against the Boston Celtics for the Bulls have been cancelled. Now, obviously, in terms of would I rather versus the Boston Celtics now, I think the Bulls are desperate for a win. So, yes, I would have loved to verse the Boston Celtics now rather than having Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all their best players come back. But the fact of the matter is, I'm more of an advocate of putting teams and players' health first, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see this season cancelled. And I've always said it. You need to appreciate these things that happen, because at the end of the day, you never know when it's taken away from you. The NBA was taken away so suddenly last time that it was so sad to see. We didn't see our team play for over a year, and they had to put themselves in a bubble. I don't want to see that happen. So of course, if teams have to suspend their games to extend it to the end of the season, I would much rather have that and maybe take a loss against the Boston Celtics than play this game. Some of the players that play for the Boston Celtics still have symptoms inside of them, or maybe they've been miscorrectly tested, which can happen. Then it leads to the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Bulls also have players that are suffering through this as well. We are a COVID hit team from the beginning of the season till now. We still have those issues, and then it hits to the next team that we play, which will be the Thunder. It spreads. So I'm very, very happy that the Boston Celtics decided to do this. I would have loved to verse the Boston Celtics now and get a victory or compete when they don't have their best players, because I just want a victory. I want this team to win. But I want this team to win the right way. I don't want to capitalize on other teams' misfortunes, which sometimes you have to do. But I'd much rather play this team when the team is capable and ready to play, instead of playing or not allowing a team to forfeit and things like that. So in saying that, it seems like we don't have the Boston Celtics. I hope that the Boston Celtics, all the Boston Celtics fans, all the Boston Celtics players that are involved within that franchise, I hope everybody is okay and safe, and focus on your health first before you focus on the NBA season. I know it's a grind. I know that it's a very confusing time, and the Boston Celtics fans are a little bit worried about what their team is going to do, how many games they're going to miss, and when are they going to be played, all these things. The big key message I have for Boston is to just make sure your players are fine. The Celtics organization, make sure your players are fine, and make sure you're absolutely certain that these players will be ready to come back when the protocols are, of course, done for them and they're allowed to come back. Make absolutely certain. If that means taking the extra day or missing another game, then so be it. Keep these players safe, because at the end of the day, it's their families that are in effect and not just them. So that's the message I have to the NBA. In terms of the Bulls, the next games that we have, we're going to only have 2 games next week against the OKC Thunder, a team that we versed in the preseason, and the Dallas Mavericks, a team that we versed in the last week's weekly video. We talked about the Dallas Mavericks. They didn't have Luka. I'm assuming this time around they will have Luka Doncic, so that is another test for the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to end this video here. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. The reason why this video is out late is because I was still contemplating with myself if I was going to make it, but I decided to do it because I feel terrible when I miss something that I feel obligated to do at the end of the day. If I start a series, I plan to finish it, or I plan to, at least towards my capabilities, give what I can, and I feel like I am doing that by making this. It's a very long video, something I haven't done in recent times, something that I'm probably not going to do for quite some time after this. I'll make these videos shorter until I feel capable of doing more longer videos. But thank you guys for all of your support. Thank you guys for the thankful messages. And I do not take them for granted, and I want to let you guys know that. Have a wonderful day, all the Chicago Bulls fans. We're in very uncertain times. This is the first time for relation to the Bulls that one of our games got cancelled or postponed. And that's scary, because you don't know if the season's going to get cancelled. Look, whether it's about the playoffs, whether it's that whether the Bulls suck or the Bulls are good, the Bulls are progressing, there's no progress, whatever you guys think, and I know there are people with different opinions, positive and negative. All I have to say is enjoy your NBA basketball. If it's the Bulls or if it's any other team, watch it and enjoy it, because you never know when it's going to get taken away from you. And this could be one of those times where if too many teams get involved in this, we could see the NBA suspended, and I don't want to ever see that happen. Of course, things will get better. The vaccines will come out, and we'll go back to the regular style of basketball. Unfortunately, that's not the case for today, for tomorrow, and for probably the next few months. But we will get better. We will overcome this, and we will get the sports that we love back on our television screens, and we'll get the fans back in the arena, and we will have what we've been missing for quite a few months, even a year now. Have a wonderful day. Take care and peace.